Good morning, grapes and peas. So I have another really cool story about something that Jesus did when the disciples were still trying to figure out who he was. This is a great story. And we're still in the book of Luke. We did a bunch of stories from the book of Matthew, and now we're doing a few from the book of Luke. It's from Luke chapter 5. More and more people were talking about Jesus and the amazing signs and wonders that followed his teaching. No wonder the religious rulers became more interested in him too. One day the Pharisees and teachers of the law came from Jerusalem and every village in Galilee and Judea to listen to his teaching. Everyone crowded into one building and all around it outside to see him. So they were inside and they were outside, and people were listening through the windows and the doors. At the edge of the crowd was a paralyzed man. Do you know what paralyzed means? It means his legs aren't working. Either he was born like that or he had an accident and his legs didn't work. Pastor John had an uncle who was like that. His legs didn't work. So this paralyzed man was being carried by a few of his friends on a stretcher. These men were desperate to get inside the house so they could lay the crippled man before Jesus, but there was no way to get through the door. Remember, there were so many people. It was packed. Then one man had an idea. Aha! They climbed up on the roof and took the stretcher with them. They tore off the roof tiles, broke a hole through the ceiling, and lowered their friend down to Jesus. When Jesus saw their faith and what they had done to get the man in the room, he said to the crippled man, "Man, your sins are forgiven." When the scribes and the Pharisees heard that, they didn't like it at all. They started talking amongst themselves. Who does this man think he is? Only God can forgive sins. Jesus is blaspheming against God. They believed that Jesus was only a man, and it is a sin for any human being to say that he is equal to God. Jesus knew what they were thinking, and he said to them, "Why are you asking these questions in your hearts? Which is easier to say, your sins are forgiven, or rise and walk? To prove to you that I, the Son of Man, have the right and the power to forgive sins," he turned to the man who was paralyzed and said, "I say to you, get up, pick up your bed, and go home." As soon as Jesus said this, the crippled man stood up, picked up his stretcher, and went home, glorifying God as he left. When the religious leaders saw this, they were filled with awe. They glorified God and talked about the extraordinary miracle he had performed. The religious rulers were wrong to be critical of Jesus, but they were right to say that only God can forgive someone's sins. You and I can forgive people when they sin against us, when they do wrong things, when they hurt our feelings, but we can't forgive a person's sin against God. Only God can do that. Jesus wasn't forgiving the crippled man for breaking through the roof. He was forgiving him for his sins against God. Remember, we've talked about our hearts and how they're against God sometimes, a lot of time. That's what Jesus was forgiving the man of. They didn't know that Jesus would die on the cross to take the punishment for the crippled man's sin so that he could be forgiven. Jesus knew their questions and that their questions needed answered, and he used the healing to teach them. But in the end, many of them rejected Jesus' teaching and refused to believe in them. Sadly, in a few years, it would be the religious rulers who would plan to arrest Jesus and have him crucified. So I love this story because the crippled man couldn't get to Jesus on his own. He needed his friends. And I know we can't be with our friends very much right now during our quarantine and everything that's going on, but we need our friends to help bring us to Jesus. So that's why I really love this story. I don't know if you can see that picture, but the man's friends had lowered him down. So talk to your parents about what was wrong with the man and what was Jesus actually claiming to do. All right, guys, I'll see you next week.